Welcome back to San Francisco and the World's 2016 group stage, where we're about to get our first look at Samsung Galaxy and Splice. Before we do that, though, let's take a look at the group as a whole. We have TSM, Samsung Galaxy, RNG, and Splice. This is the group that most people are saying would be the closest of them all.
Yeah, definitely. There's no clear favorites here. The common conception is that there's 3 top teams and then Splice who have to play spoiler here, but it's definitely interesting. And if there's one matchup where that could happen, it could be actually this matchup, especially if Samsung Galaxy kind of reverts back to their passive style that they had throughout the split. Papa, you know a little bit more about that one.
Look, I'm going to take a step back, though, Crepper, because I'm going to make a bold statement. I think that, honestly, neither of these teams should be at Worlds. And look, instantly, 2 sets of fans very unhappy with me. Fair enough. But the reason why I say that, Splice, look, almost relegated in their spring split. Changed 1 player, brought in a rookie support, made it to Worlds. A big surprise, but look, they've gone and they've developed. Samsung, though, to me, is the biggest story because they came into that series against KT Rolster 0-19 against that team in game score. For context, previous to summer, an LCS split was 18 games, 19 games of losing to the same team. Cuvée, in all of those games, had lost 19 in a row to come back. You know, it accelerated Samsung's growth, and it's great to see both these 2 teams here, though, but they did not expect this at the start of the split.
So before I go to Crumbs, I do want to let Crepo rebuttal here, just because he was saying this might be the matchup for Splice and defend this team's
Splice doesn't deserve to be at World. In their last 18 games, they were 16-2. They made a single roster change, and they stuck with their team while they were struggling as well. Look at that record. That's sexy. And the last loss didn't count. That was Sion support. These guys...
Hold on. There's got to be some sort of existential crisis happening here for Splice, because they just saw the other 2 teams from Europe just really struggle. I mean, these guys have to hold redemption for the entire region for today. Otherwise, it's going to be a complete disaster. Is it happening? Can they do it?
Of course it's
I'm not counting on it at all. In fact,
so then let me just pose one more question to you guys before we go, because I'm hearing that if this is the game that Splice, you know, rather than this is the game that Splice can win in this tournament, how do they do it though? What about the stylistic matchup says Splice can take a game off of Samsung Galaxy?
In short, if you're unfamiliar with Splice, they have weak early game, but they used to pick a lot of 1-3-1 compositions, you know, playing on both side lanes and have good mid-game macro. That only works against teams that allow you to play slow and don't smash you in the early game. Like an RNG and a TSM probably is going to smash Splice in the early game, but Samsung have shown many tendencies throughout the regular season when they played Wraith. However, when they played Core JJ in playoffs, they start playing more aggressively. It depends what style Samsung bring today.
I think that's the question. Which Samsung we see? Because we saw a whole regular season where they tried to extend the games, over a 40-minute average game time, the longest at this tournament. Poke comps, not much initiation. Then, as you say, sub in Core JJ, suddenly play aggressively. Even their top laner, Cuvée, pick up initiation champs like Kennen, and they showed like a whole new team. So do you rely on the long regular season strategies, or do you rely on what they showed more recently? I'm really excited to find out.
Needless to say, both of these teams took unexpected turns on their road to Worlds. So let's take a look back at Samsung's journey to the League of Legends' biggest stage.
첫 플레이오프에서 KT한테 3-0으로 이제 아무것도 못하고 지고.
That is it. KT will take the match. 3-0. GG.
너무 분하고 화나고 그래서 그냥 다음 선발전에서 그냥 KT만 꼭 이겨보자.
Best of 5, KT Rolster versus Samsung. The winner goes to the World Championships. KT is 19-0 over Samsung in games played since 2015 began. So this is a bit of a tough matchup for Samsung.
저희는 이제 KT하고 아무래도 상대 전적이 너무 안 좋다 보니까 지더라도 1승은 하고 지자 했는데 저희가 첫 판에 딱 이어서 진짜 우리가 한번 해낼 수 있는 거 아닌가 생각을 좀 했어요. 그러면서 이제 2패를 또 하게 됐는데 저 같은 경우에 좀 정신적으로 이제 좀 많이 피해가 많이 왔었어요. 역시 안 되는 건가 하고. 근데 감독 코치님이 이제 케어도 해주시고 우리 충분히 이길 수 있다. 후회 없이 한번 끝내보자 해서 4경기 이기고 진짜 5세트 때 우린 진짜 할 수 있을 것 같다 해가지고 이렇게 이기게 됐어요.
And Samsung, the improbable, the impossible is happening. They are going to Worlds after.
그때 이겼을 때 되게 좀 감동스럽고 감격적이긴 했어요.
진짜 몸에 힘이 다 풀려서 막 긴장됐던 근육이 다 풀리다 보니까 막 몸이 저리고 진짜 이게 진짜 이긴 건가 하고.
제가 잘 한지는 모르겠는데 결국 3-2로 이기니까 갑자기 뭔가 눈물이 터지면서
뭔가 이렇게 준비했던 결과가 좀 열매를 맺는 그런 느낌이어가지고 그냥 되게 뿌듯했고요. 그리고 이제 팀원들이 고생을 했던 거를 봐왔으니까 근데 그 선수들이 이제 좀 감동스러워하고 막 울고 하니까 저도 같이 이렇게 좀 눈물이 나오더라고요.
Welcome, everybody, once again to the Player Experience stream. I'm Devin Pyrotechnics Young, and of course, I am joined by LS and special guest Froggen. How you doing, gentlemen?
I'm so excited for this matchup. I get to finally watch Crown. So
I know,
I'm feeling
right?
Great, yeah.
He's the guy that's definitely been on everybody's list. For this game, we will be concentrating on Samsung Galaxy's mid laner Crown. We'll take a look at some of the stuff he's done in his short time that everyone's had their eyes on him. You take a look at some of those statistics. You know, he's definitely not too shabby, and everyone says he's the mechanical god. Cracks that top 20 list pretty easily.
Yeah, well, I do say he's the mechanical god. I think he's the best mechanical player here at Worlds, just in terms of his ability to control his champion and dish out damage. So I think coming into this matchup, we're going to be watching Crown versus Senkooks, and Senkooks is a player that needs a lot of jungler attention, whereas Crown is just Crown. And what I mean by that is he's probably just going to play his game and try to just roll over the opposition. And when it comes to the team fights, I expect him to do big things.
I think so. He's definitely shown it so far in LCK. You can see a couple of those plays up there. And, you know, he's a guy who's definitely had a pretty wide champion pool, even if a large number of his games are on the likes of Victor over the course of the LCK summer. But you can see he's not adverse to branching out. He's not adverse to trying different things. And, you know, he always asked that question, is the world's meta going to change enough? Is he going to fall right out of it? Doesn't seem to be the case. What do you think, Froggen?
I think it's pretty hard to fall out of the meta when he has a large champion pool already. There's a lot of mid laners right now that is viable, so I think this might be where he can shine even more than in the past, where it has been a bit limited.
Very fair.
So, see Kassadin over in a soul ban already. That could be because Crown has a lot of other mid laners that he likes to play, and he just wants to get like a few out of the way so he can play something he's comfortable on. I don't really know.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing potentially that might be 3 mid lane bans, so they might just be heavily focusing Senkooks to throw him into a specific matchup. I believe Samsung, though, they have blue side, so Splice, if they elect for it, they do have the counter pick.
There's the Cinder ban, too.
Banned out too.
Yep.
So, I mean, with the first pick, Rek'Sai, coming in, obviously that had been banned fairly heavily. We still have to wait a while before we see, you know, the mid lane. But again, Crown is a guy who has played just so much of a lot of different champions. He's one who brought out the Varus a fairly frequent bit. The Lissandra we saw is something that we're expecting to be pretty heavy at Worlds if he gets involved in those team fights early on. But he's also played the Cassiopeia. He's also played the LeBlanc, bit of Twisted Fate. There's a lot of options for this guy.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I think Splice in the qualifier. Oh, we see Cassiopeia being hovered, but he played a lot of Malzahar, so he's gonna log in the Cassiopeia. And it makes sense with the Syndra ban, because Syndra can be quite obnoxious in lane. So both Cassio and Malzahar would have suffered a bit playing against Syndra, so it does make sense to go ahead and pick that.
Yep.
So he has a lot of information to work with here,
Yeah,
a lot of time.
I feel like a lot of Splice's team comp is already actually revealed just in those first 2 picks. They also hand over the counter pick to Crown. Now, I don't know what he's going to do with it. They do have the physical damage jungler Cuvee, and they have the periodic magic damage dealer Rumble up in top lane. So I don't know if maybe Crown is planning to bring out Jace. But he could easily just go with, you know, his tried, true, and tested Victor as well.
Yeah, I think something that can poke a bit, he would probably go with, just because they have Rumble and Ezreal already, and we have seen from the previous teams that they like a kind of pokey composition with Rumble. I think for the mid lane specifically right now, Rek'Sai is probably the best jungler at ganking mid that's available, just because Elise is banned, and from my knowledge, junglers don't really like to play Lee Sin into Rek'Sai, so they are probably going to have a jungle advantage for ganking mid lane. And Cassio is also one of the champions you can gank quite easily, just because Rek'Sai can come from so many different angles.
Yep.
So that's
agree.
a fairly risky pick to take for Splice in the early game, or just confidence?
The what?
The early
Jinx?
Cassiopeia.
Oh, the early Cassiopeia. I feel like that has to be confidence. I think that's a very dangerous thing to do when Samsung Galaxy, they do play as a team, but it does become the crown show in the later stages, so why you would give up any sort of ability to him to have his way with, you know, choosing what the 2v2 and the 1v1 matchup is going to be in mid lane, it's a little bit interesting, and he is hovering that Victor. It's probably his best champion, so he might just lock it in here, and if that is going to be the case, then Samsung Galaxy has a lot of poke, but they also have a lot of gears that they can turn on with the Equalizer, with Nami's Tidal Wave, and the Gravity Field coming out of Victor.
Yeah, I really think Victor is actually one of the best picks you can pick. Not necessarily for the laning phase, but because of the mid game. So how it's going to go for the early game is that Rek'Sai can hand over blue buff to Victor, and Victor is a very mana-reliant champion. He's not very strong in the early game because he needs to get to 1.2k gold. And Rek'Sai is one of the, probably the best champion at accelerating Victor into that first upgrade of his Hex Core. Just because he can get blue buff and he ganks very, very well. And it's very easy to gank the Cassiopeia lane because you can have the Rek'Sai knock up into the Victor W and you pretty much have to flash it every single time. So, and also later on in the game, when Victor already gets 2 or 3 upgrades, he is very likely to build Rylai's just so he can stick onto people, and he's one of the best champions at actually reaching the backline, which is very good because Splyce has Jinx and Cassio, so it's easy for him just to send his lasers in and his ultimate in, and just have those 2 abilities basically annihilate the Jinx and the Cassiopeia.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong and deadly combo for Samsung, but they're still going to have to worry about quite a lot of damage coming out of the Splyce side. The Kled now locked in as well, but not so much about the top lane matchup, but he can get from point A to point B pretty quickly. Does Crown have to watch out for, aside from just trashy ganks, the Kled coming in post 6?
The good thing about playing against Graves as Victor is that he's actually not very good at ganking Victor. He can E kind of onto Victor, but Victor just puts down his gravity field, and then if Graves really wants to commit, he can flash over it, or he can ultimate from far away. So he actually cannot deal a lot of damage to Victor in a gank. And Victor is not a champion you really can go behind as a Graves. It's just you kind of go from the side, you hit a few auto attacks, you use your E and your Q, but it's too hard to do versus Victor. He just runs away with his gravity field.
Right.
So I think that Samsung Galaxy has a really, really good draft, and I'm very happy that we get to see Victor in this game.
Yep. Another thing to point out about this draft is Samsung Galaxy does have the gear that they can activate where they can just turtle their inhibitor turrets and get to their late game team fighting. Because if you look at Splyce's team composition, they do have an ability to engage, but they don't really, in my opinion, have a way to break into the base.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult for Splyce to really shut down Samsung's composition here. We will see what Kled is able to do, since we haven't seen too much of him. He might just be very, very good into the Rumble matchup. If we can keep killing him over and over again, it might be a good split push option. But that's also something Victor actually shuts down pretty well, is the abilities to split push. He's very good in a side lane, where he just can basically go onto the enemy top laner once he has Rylai's, and he can just run them down with his upgraded Q that gives him extra movement speed and a shield.
Yep.
So.
All right, guys. Of course, now that we're in the game, just like on the mainstream, don't forget to log into Twitter, hit those votes, hashtag SSGWin or hashtag SBYWin. We're going to see the results later on in the game. And popping up on the screen, there's a reason Crown is known for his Victor play. It has been his far and away most played champion.
Yep, I believe he played it 18 times in LCK, and it is his highest damage per minute champion. And I think that it's his comfort champion. If there's one champion you don't want Crown to have, it's his Victor.
Absolutely. Crown has been the guy that's done the most damage out of LCK mid laners. It's something like 32%. And, a big part of it is having that Victor.
Yeah, I mean, Victor's just very good overall. Some of his weaknesses is that he needs to get to his 1,250 gold before he bases, so he can upgrade his Hex Core. If he doesn't get that base, that's what Senkos should be looking to do, is he needs to hit his Tear of the Goddess and then base as soon as possible to prevent Crown from getting his first upgrade. So it's going to be pretty difficult for him to do it because he has a Rek'Sai jungle. So Crown is more likely to hit his power strike, and he can play a bit more aggressive and just use his entire mana pool in early game, get blue buff, and then he can go back to harassing Senko's out of lane, because he has his long range E ability, very obnoxious to deal with in the early game.
You're starting to see a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah,
I think that's a problem for Senkos, because I don't think he's using his level 1 really effectively. He only trades with Victor when Victor wants to trade, and that's bad for him. What's called Senkos needs to trade when Crown needs to last hit minions, because Crown only has single target abilities right now at level 1. So if Senkos tries to trade with Crown when Crown needs to last hit, Crown either gives up a CS for the trade, or he gets the CS and then Senkos will win the trade.
Yep. And right now, I mean, this is a pretty painful situation, I think, for Senkos to be in. He's going to be comfortable as long as he can fade a gank that could come in maybe a minute or two, but the lane is intentionally manipulated to, I think, play into that Crown Ambition, duo, and I think they want to make something happen in mid, just by how Crown is playing these early levels.
Another problem for this matchup is that Cassiopeia, for her to win her trades, she needs to be pushing, so she has a lot of minions. So every single time Victor uses his Q auto attack onto Cassiopeia, Victor will take a lot of minion damage, and that's how Cassiopeia kind of wins the trades. Besides that, if they trade in burst only, then Victor will obviously win. He has his Q auto attack into E, which is very strong. So it does open up for ganks, for the Rek'Sai to gank the Cassiopeia, which is very bad for Senkos. So he's in a really tough spot.
yeah, he's just trying to sidestep out of Death Laser, and generally having a rough time to start things off. And also, if you guys watching at home still have any other questions for us, you can always send those on Twitter via hashtag #AskTheCasters. And we'll get to those as the game goes on, especially relating into this mid lane matchup.
Yeah, so one good thing that Trashy is doing to help out his mid laner is going ahead and take Rek'Sai's blue before he can get to it. So Crown will not be able to get the blue buff, and that's very, very big in this matchup.
Yep.
And you also saw Trashy hovering around mid lane a lot to see if Rek'Sai would actually gank, which he did.
Uh-oh.
No, he's fine.
Yeah.
Victor cannot do anything early game because he goes Zoom. He really needed that blue buff, so I think right now Trashy could honestly just, he knows where Rek'Sai is gonna end up, so he could just go into Ambition's jungle and just counter jungle, and that makes Senkos play really safe, so he didn't necessarily need to push out. But now I think Cashew is gonna base with a good amount of gold, buy Tear of the Goddess, and that's just before Victor can actually get his first Hex Core upgrade, so that's a very, very good base timing. Of course, Senkos is in a very, very good spot to get a lead in this game, and I think he's gonna crawl ahead a couple of CS, and Crown can't really do much about it. So Cashew is gonna come back to lane now, and he's gonna look to freeze the lane. So ideally what you want to do when you have this good of a base, and you know Victor cannot base for the next 1.5 minion waves, then you want to look to freeze, and you want your jungler to be around, so you can abuse that he does not have any items and you have items.
Right. Right now we see that Victor's reaching the point where he's trying to get to that Hex Core upgrade because it is crucial to his laning phase.
I really hope Senkos is not gonna just push out. Right now he's killing too many creeps, and he cannot deny Crown of any CS. He should just let the creeps, just let Crown's creep kill all of his creeps, and he cannot get any CS at all. I think this is a very big misplay. Now Crown can just pick up the CS for absolutely no reason, and Senkos is not gonna go ahead and do anything. He could have denied the entire minion wave.
Yep, absolutely.
Meanwhile, up on the top side, Ambition helps secure that first blood, or picks it up for himself onto Wonder. But back in this mid lane, yeah, he's Crown's starting to find a little bit more CS back for himself, and Senkos still in that lead, but
well, you can see
back.
that Senkos is having a lead, and it's very good. He played the matchup out really, really well so far. Trashy helped him out by denying Victor the blue buff, and then Victor can't do a lot. I actually see him miss a cannon creep. That really, that hurts me. But
just a little bit.
But besides that, Senkos could be freezing right now, and Victor could not get any CS at all, compared to Victor actually getting CS and experience, and he hits level 6 and just cleans it out with his ultimate.
Yep. And this is
so I think right now Senkos could be up like maybe half a level, if not even more, if he just chose to freeze the lane, and Rek'Sai can't do anything about it. Rek'Sai can't gank a champion for a champion that has no mana at all.
Right. One of the things that was interesting is they knew basically exactly where Ambition was going to be almost at all times. They had a pretty good idea of it because of the compromise onto the blue and when they shoved Crown underneath turret. So everything that Froggen was just saying was absolutely correct. I don't understand why, when Crown handed over, I think it was like a 7-minion wave to Sencooks, that he elected just to shove it back into Crown, because that's what Crown wanted to do. Even from level 1, we saw that that's how he wanted to play out the laning phase.
And another point is that if Crown had enough gold to base and buy his Hexcore upgrade, then it would be okay for Sencooks to actually push in the minion wave, but since he did not, there's no reason not to freeze it. So, and another cannon minion was missed.
Still hurting there?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Hexcore upgrade, because we've actually got a tweet about Victor builds here from @GarlicTweets. What is the best build for Victor in this game? Is there any reason not to finish Hexcore before building other items?
So usually how it goes, especially since Victor got nerfed, you want to upgrade the Hexcore as many times as possible because it gets cheaper for every single upgrade you get. But what happens most of the time is that you just skip getting boots unless you have a really good base timing. You just skip boots, you get 2 upgrades, and you either go into Lost Chapter or you go into Rylai's Crystal Scepter. If you go Lost Chapter, it's because you have problems getting blue buffs and have problem controlling your mana because you're trading a lot or because of what other reasons there might be. Besides that, you want to get Rylai's Crystal Scepter as soon as possible, just so you can put down your ultimate on top of the enemy, and then you can just keep chasing him down and he can't do anything about it, because Victor ultimate has insane base damage and it just keeps on ticking, so you can't actually trade in Victor AoE.
And right now, I mean, I don't know what Sencooks is hoping to achieve with how he's playing this laning phase. Crown is also going to be able to activate the Dirty Farm now whenever he chooses, which that is going to mount him ever so slightly at overtime. But it looks like we're going to have a roam type play coming on.
Oh, okay. That's why he was going for that one. Sencooks with that quick double kill, and
that's very good follow-up.
Get Splice back into that game, really.
And this is partly because Crown didn't go mid and actually trade. He just decided to go take the 3 small waves, and maybe there was some miscommunication in his team or something like that. Because on Victor, you do want to farm up, but you also want to like challenge the roam if it does eventually come. With Sencooks as fast as doing, he can push up the Victor, and it's very, very well played and a very good roam.
Yeah, we see a ping going out on the top lane. They might actually look to do a 3-man roam and then reset Crown's blue buff right now. But we saw that Mickey X was actually moving that way, and he did have level 6, so he would have been able to hop in and save Wonder up there in top lane.
Crown's definitely been playing a little more follow this game rather than getting the incentive to roam on his own, and it's kind of strange. It's something he was known for in LCK, really, to be that guy that was going to roam around and help buff up lanes.
Yeah.
The problem with roaming in the early game, especially because he did not have a good base timing, and Sencooks did, he has the pressure in the lane, so he will constantly push up Crown until Crown decides to like really go have a more offensive position and just really push it out, which is exactly what he's doing now, and that's very good. That's what he should be looking to do as Victor. He should push up another minion wave and then base as soon as he has the next upgrade and maybe get boots too. And then once he has the 2 upgrades, he's gonna be very strong. He can dodge a lot of the Cassiopeia abilities, and that's when Cassio will have a bit rougher time in lane.
Yep. And I'm wondering if, because he just chose to get that blue buff right now, if he's going to go for the blue-blue Victor, which I believe is very popular in Korea, where you get Ionian boots with a 2nd Hexcore upgrade. And that just gives you a lot of mobility. It opens up a lot of your summoner spells. You can use them much more liberally. And, you know, he can help out his team a little bit more. And I don't think that Sencooks, given how he's choosing to play the lane this game, is really going to be able to keep up with that. And we're going to find out in a second if that is going to be his itemization path.
All right, so it does seem like things are going pretty well for Crown considering how Sencooks is playing this one out. But do the 2 kills he's picked up, does that accelerate him to a point where Crown needs to be a little bit more careful than he was previously?
It does accelerate him, but you can see Sencooks is going for a lot of mana. He really wants to build up that mana pool, and he's having some magic resistance too. So it really depends on how Sencooks decides to play the lane. If he decides to go really aggressive onto Crown, I think he can actually do it, but he needs to be careful he's not caught in a fog of war like you saw before. He walks into a close to a bush and he just gets chunked out, and that makes him lose lane pressure. If he's full HP and he wants to play aggressive onto Crown, then I really think he can do it. He just needs to kind of do it in the right way, where he wants to be in lane, contest the minion wave, throw out the W, and then if it's a Q, he'll really aggressive. Like here, he keeps walking back, he can like go straight, and there's the rumble room.
Yeah, he knows Kuve's right there, and even though Senkux is going to spend that ulti, there's nothing doing. So Kuve gets the kill instead of Crown, but still, nice teamwork there for Samsung.
Yep. And I would be surprised if you look at the minimap right now, if Crown actually just rotated down and they took up a Drake right now. The alternative would be to actually eat this minion wave and then look to steal the Wraiths away from Trashy.
Oh, Kled is rolling down right now, so...
Oh, here he comes.
Oh, that's the counter gang. Let's see.
Well, it's a lot of damage they got on Trashy before it was all over.
He's the wrong way.
Crown says not today.
All right, well, there's your answer. Double kill for Victor.
Oh my god.
And Mickey X wishes he wasn't here right now.
It's all right. They're going to be able to back up right now. I think that they should just actually look to take a Dragon opportunity here, and then also Crown should try to steal away the Wraiths and have let the lane just reset normally, and then he can fall back and eat it. So a little bit interesting. His choice there. I think he could have maximized a little bit better. But nonetheless, let's see what his itemization is going to be in. He's going right into Rylai's.
We got to take a look at this again. This is why I love Kled, by the way. He's the most YOLO champion.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
He's
they
a
read
lot of
this
fun,
really, really, really well. I mean, everything just basically lined up. They also didn't respect the fact that as Samsung Galaxy has teleport. Tom Kench's ultimate, even if he's there on time, it's not going to do anything. In fact, I think he would even die.
Yeah. This is Samsung just being
This
able
is
to
what they do.
read the map a lot better and
Yep.
being able to fight more cohesively than Splices.
Yep. And remember, Samsung Galaxy's team composition, they are the late game superior team comp. So the longer that this game goes, and not only just the longer that it goes, they have 3 absolutely enormous scaling champions.
All right. Well, we got another question from Twitter. We can take a look back to the mid lanes and the summoner spell choices this time from @SolsticeSunGod. I see Ghost on Cassiopeia and Victor a lot. Why is this over others, and how do I use them to my advantage?
I think Ghost is just very good because of the teamfight potential. Sometimes you do see Victor take heal because it's a bit better in lane. You can trade more offensively, so you can like win out on the trades if you keep on trading. But here I see both players basically just want to teamfight really well, and they can dodge each other's abilities with the Ghost. Like if you can Ghost out of Victor ultimate, Victor can try to stay in range with the Ghost. But yeah, heal is not entirely uncommon, or sometimes even exhaust if you play against an assassin. But besides that, I think Ghost is just the best ability for team fighting.
Yep. Oh.
I might have to use it soon. Maybe not quite.
Yeah.
Dodges out of.
He does have to
some
dodge
damage.
the Jinx ultimate.
Ooh,
If
yeah.
Kabi?
Yep.
Kabi, yeah, elects to try to shoot it.
Not this time. No blind into the fog of war.
Yep.
So, you know, they're able to successfully force Crown back right now, but he's still not having too much trouble. Like the 2-kill lead that Senkux had taken, pretty much neutralized off of the team fight. You know, Samsung are looking pretty good. And
Yeah.
Crown, you know, where does he go from here? Does he need to sit mid lane, or can he start roaming around?
Well, the thing is that top and bottom tier 1 tower are down, and you can also see that because Crowd acknowledges that, there's no real incentive to go for the 2-2, the double blue build. So he completes into the final Hex Core. He's going to get all the upgrades, obviously, there, get the AP, get the mana from that. It's a very, very cheap buy, given that it's only 750 gold now because of the changes to Victor a few patches ago. And that's just Crown saying that he acknowledges that the game has entered into a turtle stance, where the next thing that's likely to happen is going to be a team fight, in which case the Ionian boots don't really do anything, but that Hex Core does a lot.
I think, honestly, Ionian Boots does just as much as the Hex Core upgrade, but the reason he purchased the Hex Core is because he just had like 800, 900 gold to base with. If he had 600 gold, I don't think he would have went ahead and sold his Dawn String. I think he would just have upgraded his boots. I think both items are just really valuable to have. The good thing about the W upgrade in teamfights is that it kind of just collects everyone in the middle, and then his E can hit everyone twice, and that's very, very strong. And I think the improved Flash and Ghost, if he had Ionian boots, would be massive for teamfights as well.
Yep. Agree with that.
It's only, you know, Giant's Belt and combined cost away from picking up on that Rylai's. I mean, how much does this really spike Victor's power with the slow as well as the AP?
It's huge because most people don't really see Victor as a champion that can pick people off, but when he finishes Rylai's, he really has a role of a pick-off champion too. If he hits someone with his Q, if he hits someone with his E, he can just constantly run them down, and there's nothing they can do about it other than flashing away. So completing that is one of the best item power spikes he gets in the game, because it's usually around level 13 too, where he has Q max and he has E max, and it's at the lowest cooldowns. So it's just overall very good.
Well, there's some fight ambition. He's caught a little bit here, and the Jinx Rocket's going to execute, so Splice do manage to get a kill, but they're going to have to flash away from that Chaos Storm. Crown's running them down, and that's what you're talking about. Oh, man. But, you know, it's a double kill for Sencooks before he goes down.
Yeah, and a double kill for Crown, and that's not where you want the kills to be going for Samsung Galaxy.
Yeah, I think Trash had flashed up, so he could have flashed it as well, but I guess he didn't expect the Victor damage.
Yeah.
Besides that, I think it was a pretty well fought team fight. Crown tried to just run out of all the AoE that they could throw at him, so he was in a safe position while he keeps his Chaos Storm onto 2 people, and it picks him up a couple of kills, and that's very good.
Oh, that's not a good idea. I think Wonder might actually die here. Crown deals a ton of damage.
Well, he lost Scarl,
oh, no.
but Mickey's there.
Mickey might go down? Yeah. Never mind.
But next time they make that mistake, they will not be able to get away, because Crown will have his Rylai's Crystal Scepter. And that's really the difference between having Crystal Scepter and not having Crystal Scepter. Once you have it, no one can get away.
I'm actually really surprised right now that they didn't just give Wraiths over to Crown. That way he could complete Rylai's and Ionian Boots. But nonetheless, he will come back with Rylai's now, and that's a game changer, because now it adds CC to Victor's kit beyond just the gravity field, and as you can see, all these Chaos Storms would be slowing. The lasers, the Qs, it becomes very obnoxious, and Victor becomes extremely slippery.
I also think this is partly because Samsung has better items to fight right now than Splice, so they just won the fight, because on the other hand, Sencooks actually did really well in the fight. I mean, he only got ulti on one person, which is not the greatest, but he managed to pick off Wraith, and then he managed to pick off the Ezreal afterwards too. And that's actually well played by him too. It's just that I think Samsung actually had their power spikes and they were ready to fight.
It's actually a pretty good point. I mean, when you look at the compositions and what they're built to do, we talked about Samsung being able to, late game fight really well, but how much does the Cassiopeia and to a lesser extent the Jinx really play into Splice's ability to match that the longer the game goes?
I think Cassiopeia is gonna do fine. They don't have a whole lot of things that can actually get on top of her. They really have the Rumble ultimate, Rek'Sai can unburrow on top of her, and Crown can throw his long range abilities, and then they have the Ezreal poke. Besides that, they don't really have a whole lot of abilities.
Ooh. Crown's got this.
There we go. Waits for the moment, flashes in. That's mine, I got it. Okay, so we're getting close to 20 minutes, and you can see Samsung, even though the kills might look pretty even, Samsung's definitely the ones that are controlling this pace and pushing it in forward.
Right now they're 5k behind, so it's quite significant just because of how their champions actually snowball the game.
Yep. The thing about Samsung Galaxy's team composition is generally it would be one that would normally be behind, given that it's a Victor mid lane with an Ezreal bottom lane. The fact that they're ahead, it only exacerbates the problem for Splice, because they would want to either be near even or actually ahead of Samsung Galaxy. So even though the gold difference is only 6k, it's more like you're looking at like 10k or something.
Like realistic expectations, yeah. That's starting to look pretty rough if you're Splice, and Crown is of course a big part of that, even though Sencooks is trying to chase him down with the Ghost. Laser damage starting to prove pretty heavy here. Let's head back to Twitter for just a second.
That looks like a tilt, by the way, out of Sencooks. I don't know in what world
you never know.
He expects to kill him there.
I've cast a lot of Sencooks over this year. He sometimes wants to go a little more ham. EU mid laners and something or other like that. But back to Twitter. Brian Crutchett 1, he says, when do you know when is the appropriate time to go to base when it comes to wave management? I think both you gentlemen can probably elaborate quite a bit on that.
I mean, we touched on it a bit in the early game, where it's you want to base when you have your items and whenever you're going to be strong in lane. So for Sencooks, it's when he has the Tear of the Goddess. For Crown, it's when he has his first FLICKR upgrade. And it's really like, whenever you have your item, you want to look to base as soon as possible. And it's also important to be on top of that with your jungler, so he doesn't invade when you have a really good base timing. I think Splice actually did outplayed Crown and Ambition in that early part of the game just because of that, but they failed to really do more with that lead they actually gained from the base advantages. So
Okay.
I think he might go down.
Wave goodbye.
yeah,
Took
Okay.
a little longer than I might have thought, but I mean, Samsung, they're able to own so much of this map right now.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a lot of resource investment via the Ghost. But back to what Froggen was saying about the itemization recalling, you generally want to time your recalls around your recipe items or the components, whatever. But also you want to time it so that it does something for you in the lane. If you would just recall and get an amplifying tome, but you only have 0.4 AP ratios, I mean, that's not really going to do too much for you. So generally, you want to try to sustain and live a little bit longer so that you have a more productive recall.
yeah. On the other hand, it's also very important that you play around your opponent's base timings. So with a lot of the mid lane champions, you know that they want to hit their items. Like Malzahar, 900 gold, Lost Chapter, he's very strong then. Cassiopeia, Tear of the Goddess, she's very strong then. Victor, you have the first upgrade, he's very strong then. So you need to play around that too. So even if you actually don't get anything from the base at all, but you base, you get full HP, you maybe get a few pots on a pink ward, that can actually kind of put you in a winning position because it forces the opponent to base or make him, or you can deny him a few creeps if he doesn't base just because you have stacked up on pots and you're full HP again. And that's something I would really have liked to see Senkrix actually do in this game.
Yep.
Because that is the biggest weakness of Victor.
Yeah, we touched on how Senkrix, I think, really botched the first 5 minutes of the lane manipulation and his recall timings, letting Crown just get to that hex score basically unscathed, although he did suffer a minor CS deficit. The thing here also, by the way, is you see the needlessly large rod on Victor. I'm wondering if he's going to actually just make that into a Luden's Echo, because I can't see it transforming into a Death Cap against the Graves or the Kled, and I don't think it's really necessary. I think he realizes that he's so far ahead, and as long as Splice can't bring him down, which the Luden's Echo is going to give him the slipperiness to do so, I think he just rolls over the entire team fights by himself, and Tom Kench is not going to be able to interrupt that.
So this is the kind of thing that's, I mean, obviously very situational, but just mostly because he's so far ahead.
Honestly, I feel like it's a mistake to buy a large rod. He has absolutely no reason to get it, and he should be going for cooldown reduction. Obviously, right now he values the movement speed. He just completed his Luden's Echo, but cooldown reduction is way more valuable as Victor at this point in the game, and also he doesn't have a huge mana pool. So I think that he should be going for Morellonomicon instead, because it just is too strong of an item to get on Victor.
Yep.
But
I just want to point out that XPK thinks that Senkrix is too tanky right there. Definitely special.
Splice are trying to hang on here, and Mickey's absorbing a lot, but at this point, well, the Rocket's going to go a little bit wide, and Crown, yeah, he's godlike. He does get shut down. The Kled Gold comes in. Splice do get a little bit of extra for their team, but like all the same, they should maybe not be able to turn this. Now that they've lost Wraith. So Splice do manage a fight. It kind of came down to a really, really long movements up to the top.
Yeah, that was mostly all Cuve's fault right here. Him going down there was just way too bad, and then Crown was out of position. I don't know what this teleport is. This feels like a little bit disrespectful of a teleport. I don't think that if this was LCK or if this was the finals, semifinals of a match, they would be making this play, because it just doesn't make sense. Nothing's gained off getting these kills.
I mean, the fight's just getting a little bit crazier. Kuve does go golden, and Wonder should fall. Ruler's going to pick the kill up, but it feels like it's gone a little ARAM-y here. Oh, and Kabi's killed Kuve. Wow.
I just looked at Constance, and he has cooldown reduction per level, and that's probably why he's not opting into the Morellonomicon. So we might see him go for something like Lichbane later. That's another item that would give him movement speed, it would give him a better mana pool, and it would give him the last 10% CDR, so he would sit on a 40% once he has blue buff as well. So I think maybe not Morellonomicon would be better, but maybe something like a Lichbane, because it technically does the exact same thing as a Luden's Echo.
Yep. I think the Lichbane is very good. It has a lot of synergy with that Luden's as well, and I mean, that's how Crown has been wanting to play these team fights. Also interesting that you brought up the CDR, because generally victors in Korea elect to take the magic resistance and just be a complete lane bully. So I think it also shows a little bit deeper into what was Samsung thinking just in the drafting phase. And given how Crown played the laning phase, levels 1 through 5, I think it indicates that he had complete intention to just be defensive.
Yeah, but I think being like he doesn't necessarily have too much of a defensive build because his mana pool is so low that if he wanted to be defensive and just spam his abilities on the wave, then he would run quite out of mana quite fast.
Yeah.
So that's actually what you see. It's kind of a struggle for Samsung right now because you see Crown go to lane, he's spamming his abilities, he's taking jungle camps away, and then you see him having like 40% mana, and then now he goes ahead and is like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna use my abilities because I'm gonna run out of mana. Like, he would be able to snowball it harder and be able to really have a lot more of a presence on the map if he just went for some more mana items.
Yep.
So
I think picking up a Sheen next would be good.
I was gonna say, like, is there an item build that would specifically kind of move him in that direction? Is there anything else on the map that they should be focusing on? I mean, the Baron seems, you know, like well within their purview if they can set it up properly.
Yeah, I mean, they can kind of do whatever they want. They have a very strong team fight right now, and all of Samsung is strong. They just need to be sure that everyone is ready to fight once the fight actually happens.
Well, Wonder's ready to fight, that's for sure. And the Rocket does not take down Ruler. It gets really, really close, though. Samsung have been able to disengage this. That was close, though.
That was pretty close, yeah. Ruler almost actually went down there, which was a little bit surprising. Credit to Splice, though. They did try to capitalize on a mispositioning by Samsung.
Yeah. I mean, we're focusing a lot on Samsung because this is the Crown stream, but, like, Splice seem to have not been slouching super hard on their team fights, and Samsung have been making some mistakes. I mean, what's the end back in here for Splice?
I think it has to be that Kled gets a really good engage on top of Crown, and then they really try to follow up with, like, Graves ultimate, with Jinx ultimate, just stack a lot of damage on top of Crown while he's CC'd by the Kled. Besides that, it's a very slippery Samsung lineup. Like, Ezreal can kind of do his own thing. It's really hard to get on top of him. So I think as the game goes on, they should just focus on killing Crown and then make sure that Crown does not kill the Jinx, and then Jinx can maybe snowball with some resets.
Yep. I think Crown's about to recall here. He is stockpiling a ton of gold.
Wow.
He's going to go ahead and buy a Void Staff right now.
Yep.
So he's not going to fix his mana pool problem. So he might need to base a bit more often. Yeah. The good thing about this build, though, is that it provides a lot of movement speed, it provides slows, and he does have a decent amount of CDR while he has blue buff. So he's going to deal a ton of damage.
Yep. So when these teamfights break out, you can look for Crown to just try to absolutely annihilate either Kled, Cassiopeia, Tom, or Jinx, because the only real target that can survive his entire burst is going to be Graves with that maul.
Yeah. I think ideally for Crown, he would want to kill the Jinx because I think Jinx is the only one that can really carry the fights for Splice. It's the only one that can really deal with all of Galaxy's long-range abilities.
Yep.
Yeah, Poppy's definitely been showing up in that regard.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can see Samsung still, they've been able to at least get some catches off as long as they don't, like, lose control and that the fights just go really crazy, and that's when Splice seemed to have been able to get it. But at this point, he can also play sidewave control really well.
Yep.
Well, that's the problem. Right now, it might look really good. Crown is getting so many CS. Like, he has 312 CS at 30 minutes, and it's very good. But at one point, he's going to be full items. But Victor cannot stop taking CS. Like, if you need to wave clear mid, it's probably going to be, like, Ezreal can hit a few Qs.
Oh.
And we have a fight.
Oh boy. All right, so they blew a lot on Mickey there, but Trashy's still going to go down. Wonder's chasing down Crown and Ambition, but there's no backup left anymore. This is Samsung starting to pick Splice apart.
Yep.
Yeah, this looked like Splice was just caught out of position. I don't think they necessarily needed to contest that buff really hard.
Yeah, the other problem is even though some people might think that it might be advantageous for Splice to fight in condensed areas, it's actually not going to be, primarily just because of the Victor and the Rumble. And looks like that Baron's going to go down and Crown.
They do focus straight on him, but I mean, they've already got Baron buff. Mickey was locked up. Wonder can only use so much, and you know, they could just blow right through the Tahm Kench. So Samsung are, I mean, this looks like they're entering endgame.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually think Splice was in a pretty good position if they had just not really walked up and died, because they were about to finish their power spikes, and then they could maybe have looked to fight. Right now it's going to be very tough, especially with another Infernal Dragon spawning, and that's the best thing for Victor. Usually Crown is probably going to go for a death cap just because they already have a Fire Dragon and they're going to get an Infernal Dragon, and they're going to get the next one too, and it just synergizes so well.
Yep.
Yeah, his AP's starting to pretty much hit critical mass.
Yeah.
So Crown's pretty happy right now. I mean, 7-1-3, you can't really complain about the score he's been able to put up this game.
I don't know if he'll...
And
now you know. Yep, he's
Sankooks
dead.
is gone. But
And
Scumbag Raid stole the kill.
Mickey X is going to die too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't even get to gray health. Wow, and Ray steals it again.
Yeah.
That's so BM.
So the fish wanted the fish. That's what was going on there. Yeah.
I mean, I guess, you know, fish do eat fish.
And this is probably going to be the end game push. I actually can't see Splice holding this, given that you look at Samsung Galaxy's summoners and then you look at Splice's, and Samsung Galaxy can be really, really flexible inside of this team fight and sieging these Nexus turrets if they choose to be.
And you look at the death timers too.
I think they're going to go to the next inhibitor
Yeah.
because Rumble is back catching the minion wave.
If I know Samsung, though, they'll take the second inhibitor first. This is just stylistically how they played inside of Korea. They are very methodical, always looking to maximize the percentage chances that they will win the game or lower the percentage chances that they will lose the game. That's just how they like to play.
Yeah. Crown's really been on display this game, though. Even though the matchup, you know, could have swung Sankooks making a couple of mistakes, you can argue, not always optimal, but Crown really, really played well so far this game, and it shows why a lot of people put him, you know, very high in the pool of mid laners at Worlds.
I also think it's a good game to have for Samsung first, like go out play your comfortable champions, but when they're gonna play against better early game teams, then they might have a problem with picking Vector early on in the game because it really can't punish them. And you saw that Splice was almost able to do it, so I think that they might be a bit more careful with picking Vector next time, even though he's having a really great game right now.
Yep.
Alright, see if they can finish this one off before Wonder goes in.
Wow.
Oh, he's on Kuve, but I mean, you can't finish him off when the Zhonya's is on, and there you go,
yeah.
the Chaos Storm's just going crazy.
And
Mickey, Wonder, Kabi, they're all scattering here. Kuve goes in for the flash. He's gonna die though. Oh, maybe not, the heal.
Oh my god.
Ow!
Hello.
Okay, well that
That was
that
not a
doesn't signal
glorious
game over.
revolution, yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be it. So 33 minutes in, Samsung, they show him who's boss. They pull out the emotes and they go right onto the fountain. Oh, that's a manner move. All right, well that's GG. Nice.
Oh man. And I mean, that was a pretty dominating performance, I think, from Crown there. He did what I expected him to do when it came to the team fights. I think that his positioning was always relatively pretty good, and I can't wait to actually see what his damage output this game was, because he did so much with those lasers, even at max range.
I have a feeling it's going to be pretty damn high. Yeah, Fruggin's looking at it on the screen. Oh boy.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, Ruler had a pretty good time on the Ezreal too, but yeah, Crown was just blowing people up.
Yep.
I mean, for the moment that he nuked Trashy in the river, like it started to seem to go like snowball downhill for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Sankooks wasn't able to transition his early kills into anything worthwhile, and I think that also because of how he dropped the laning phase early on against Crown and enabled Crown to just get to that hex score, that was the biggest points to take away, I think, from the early game.
Yeah. Crown didn't have to give anything away either in his pick ban. I mean, we talked about this being a guy who played the most champions in LCK as a mid laner, even if a lot of them were one-offs, but he just brought out his Victor, and he did Victor things. Curious to see what else he's got in the tank going forward in the matches. I mean, it's a good point, Frog, and he may not be able to get away with playing the Victor against opponents that do a little bit more in the early game.
Yeah, I think Victor, you can really abuse him in the early game. Like, you saw it, even Splice, they were, like, not like they're a bad team or anything, but they were able to punish that Victor pick early on. Like, Sankooks picked up 2 early kills. He was able to deny Crown of a really good base, so he was faltering behind, and then he's trying to catch up by farming the jungle creeps, and they weren't able to get the blue buffs onto Crown and all that kind of stuff. And that can really snowball really hard when you have a mid laner that's not really relevant in the first, like, basically the first 1 to 7 levels. But besides that, I think that obviously his display on Victor was really good. He played the team fights really, really good. That's like, if you want to pick Victor, you need to be able to do that, and he's able to do that. But
yeah. Last thing I want to mention, though, is I think that Crown played the laning phase, levels 1 through 4 or 5, expecting to get that blue buff, and when he didn't get it, that's when Sankooks really was handed the ability to really just apply pressure to the wound, and he didn't do it. So I think that's where one of the really biggest problems came in was the mishap with blue.
Yeah. Definitely something that other teams will probably be watching to see if they can exploit, but that is it for us for now. For here, we'll be right back for the last game of the day, where we'll welcome Matt back to the show and head to the bottom lane to focus on the matchup between TSM's Doublelift and RNG's Uzi. That should definitely be a good one, gentlemen. I'm looking forward to it. Until then, though, we're going to go ahead and pass it back to the analysts as they continue their discussion of Samsung Galaxy's victory.
Wraith was best at Nami during the regular season, especially at the start of the season. His mechanics and their champion were there for all to see. Great Nami play here. The double kill, Bloodthirsty support, love you, Doa. But the other side of things is the Victor, leaving the Victor up. It's very predictable what you're going to see. It's why KT had to ban it, and did a really good job on the Victor, as expected.
And I feel this is where Splice fell prey to like the internal scrim meta, because they went in with a plan. They knew they were handing over Rek'Sai because they wanted the Cassiopeia in return because their last ban was Syndra. So they said, in their minds, if we get the Cassiopeia, there's no good matchup here that makes it worth it for the enemy team, and that's a good trade. But then they actually didn't keep in mind that Crown is just one of the best Victor players in the world, if not the best one altogether. And then the Nami point ties into that too. You know, like the relative value of some of these power picks is just so much higher on Samsung.
I was going to say, you have to keep in mind that it is Crown playing the Victor.
Yes.
Against another team might be a different story, but against Samsung, it is this. Now, I want to jump back to your point. You talked about jungle pathing, especially around that mid lane, making it very difficult for Trashy, for example, to get some pressure into lanes. And that's where I want to call up our first replay here. Cross-map kills for Samsung Galaxy. A nice dive in the top lane, followed by a kills picked up in the bot lane.
They've been harassing Wonder for about a minute now, and they finally are able to dismount him here with this final little Prey Seeker. But unfortunately, it's already too late. There's no help on him on this side, and he's going to be able to die. And unfortunately, Trashy's not going to be able to do anything. He's just a little bit too late. Had he reacted a little bit sooner, this could have actually turned into something.
And then here we see Mickey kind of overextending too much. This is one of those phases where if you walk up to Mickey after the game, you ask Mickey, were you trolling? He goes like, yes. Because this is just, it's just stupid and dumb to overextend. I don't know what the point of this play was. Beautifully chased though by Samsung Galaxy bot lane. Rafe is really good at knowing when to flash bubble. When he knows the enemy no longer has flash, either he gets hit by the bubble or he jukes into you and dies. But both those plays there were just misplays. Because if you look at the top exchange, that was a second Prey Seeker in a row. I would almost argue that it's worth flashing the second Prey Seeker to preserve the dismount, because the dismount effect is an invulnerability. For like a frame or two, you just dodge any damage taken. During a tower dive, that's much more valuable than just flashing into lane. And I definitely kept my eyes on Graves there too. Like Trashy actually turned around at one point and then went back to top. So communication is falling apart for Splice, and individually they're misplaying too.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, the fact that that summoner spell, just keeping that invulnerability would have allowed Trashy the extra second or two he may have needed to get there and help him out. I want to push us ahead to our next replay, which is brought to you by Acer and comes in the mid game. Here we're going to see a nice execution of the Kled along with Tom Kench making the cross map plays, getting into the fight for Splice here.
It all starts with some nice little jukes from Cuvee, but unfortunately Cassiopeia's DPS is just going to be way too much, and the entire team is just following behind.
But he's buying a lot of time, though, Cuvee. That's obviously what he was trying to do there. He swapped flash for flash. That part was fine, but the Tom Kench rotation really helps out here, and things start off really strong for Splice, all things considered.
Yeah, it looked good when that Victor connected, but then this play right here, you know, where the Kled goes in. Crowd is going wild for this replay. Sadly, that's not for the replay because fan favorites TSMs are walking on stage. But in this entire exchange, there are two key players here. Senkux is playing this fight above expectations, and Ruler is playing it underneath.
He won that 1v1 against the Jinx before that fight, forcing her to completely retreat out of the battle.
But watch Ruler here. He hits the first Q, then he misses one. We just watch the Q. Unfortunately, Ruler is just not putting out damage. You got the counter coming.
4.
Prepper. Don't know if that's sponsored by Acer, but regardless.
5 miscues by Acer right there. And 6. Oh, it's actually really bad.
This is a situation, though, where Samsung's actually going to get a couple kills back here off of the re-engage from Splice. Could have been a bigger advantage to Splice, but for me, what this replay really shows is what a Kled, along with a Tom Kench composition, is capable of, because we saw Samsung out-rotating to the top lane. They were going to get there first, but no, Splice, with the composition they built, were able to respond in kind and cover that distance fast.
Oh god, that
power was
there.
sick.
That was nice.
This game was a lot about the what-ifs. We saw what the Kled could do, but it was from behind, specifically with bot lane surprisingly behind. If bot lane went even, that Kled shows up even a little bit of CS behind.
Yeah.
I think it could have been very different.
No, just this composition from Splice. If you're even, you can send in the Kled, and then you can kind of wear through the damage and the counter engage. But the problem is, if you fall behind against Victor and Rumble, two of their key strengths, or those two champions' strengths, is just stopping you from walking in. Like, you're going to walk into an Equalizer, Laser, and Victor ulti? No, and the Kled just couldn't do too much. Risky composition, slightly misplayed by Splice, but honestly, very clean by Samsung.
Crown picking up player of the game here on that Victor. We already hit on it a little bit, but one more time just around the horn here. I mean, Crown on this champion, Victor is not something you can give away lightly. If you're going to do it, you have to get a lot in return for it.
And the crazy thing about it is that this is not a contested pick in Worlds at all. In fact, Victor has kind of phased out of the meta as time has gone by, and we barely kind of expected. We're like, oh, he's a pretty good pick. You can run him here and there, but now we see a guy being able to play this nerf champion into such a powerful position that maybe teams will have to rethink how they see this pick and maybe practice it a little bit more for the coming days.
I mean, the story has been Nami today. Nami's been the big pick that's come up in priority, and just to slot in Wraith, a fantastic Nami player.
Yep.
It's a really nice time for Samsung.
Yep, and 1,000 DPM there for that Victor.
Incredibly high.
Great way to start the tournament for Crown in the mid lane. All right, well, we're backing to base for 3.5 minutes, but stay tuned because the final match of the day between TSM and Royal Never Give Up is coming up next.
TSM.
Yeah. Shout at me.
What?
Shout at me. Shout.
Oh my god. What can I shout?
Shout something.
Shout.
Go Nash, go Nash!
Okay, we can do Nash. Is that fine?
Nicky's in so much trouble. Grey Health has been popped. Decent flame chompers, but Ruler just arcane shifts forward. Flash for flash. Oh, got him! Kobe's down!
I can kill Nami.
Victor's on me.
I'm moving. Okay.
Fine. Okay, nice.
Good job, good job.
Is locked up, and Super Mega Death Rocket takes down Ambition. A flash forward. Senkex has got the poison damage, and he's ruling. Ruler! Cuvée goes golden, roasts Senkex, turns him into a pair of shoes. A new challenger appears. Kobe's looking for more. Flash away. Mickey saves Kobe.
나봐줘. 나. 클레드부터 탐켄치 먹고 이거 잡고
나이스. Samsung Galaxy pick up their first win on Worlds 2016.
Dare to be different. Revel in the impossible. Introducing a little anarchy. Disrupting the natural order. Because a hero lies in all of us. Nothing is beyond your reach. Claim your victory and go forth to conquer new worlds.